Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode, Strategy and Tactics. So, you have a team. You've worked out how that team might work well together. You've established norms, you've allocated roles and responsibilities, and now we have to work out what we're going to do. So, although strategy is natural, we have to be motivated to strategize by a problem. So, we're going to first look at that, but before we do, here's the opening credits. Okay, welcome back. I want to talk about strategy for a minute. You guys have created groups, and I've identified problems and have things that you like to achieve, and such a wide variety of things that there's a danger that my discussion here will be a little bit you'll have to work hard to connect what I'm saying with your activity. That's okay. I just want you to be aware if there are gaps and you need clarification on anything, come to one of the drop-in sessions, okay? So let's talk about this thing called strategy. So quite simply, strategy becomes motivated by identifying a problem or identifying a need. So here's an example. You look around yourself and you say, oh, you know what this school doesn't have? It doesn't have sporting teams. I'm talking to a lot of people and I understand there's a need for sporting teams. So let's try that out. Let's mobilize and get ourselves working for that. You may also be in your house and you see that there's a problem with the dishes, right? Now, framing it as a problem is okay, but the first step of strategy is actually working out what the needs are. Okay, and that brings into play all of the other great things that you learned in design thinking, for interview for empathy, for the AEIOU method of observing an environment. So you can actually collect data, collect information, not necessarily 100% on what people say, but also observe them in that environment, talk to other people, and try and identify the needs. That requires a high degree of skill. That requires your investment in understanding how to ask the right questions. And hopefully you've been building this skill all year and you'll continue, because we do know that you get better at what you practice. So asking questions, identifying needs, and looking at problems as opportunities to understand more rather than just a dead end. So this is where the skill comes in that bridges your design thinking to your community organizing. And for that very good reason, we frame our strategies less as concrete things, but more as questions, as how might we questions, because that question still needs some development. I want to make a point here for anyone watching who has done community organizing with the Harvard Kennedy School, is that this is a deviation point of customization for our students here at UWC ISAC Japan. And it's not a bad one, because there is a harmony between developing a process, a collaborative process of design thinking, and merging it with developing strategy and tactics. I think it's probably something worth exploring, but that's what we do. Okay, so let's move on. I thought I'd do this in a very practical way, so you understand what's going on. And I'm going to use the example again of the strategic team here at school. So let's go through this, pace through this together. And I think you'll find by the end of this sheet, you're going to understand more about how to frame your strategic questions, identify your needs. So this is what we did. This is our organizing statement, if you recall. So we're organizing a strategic team to realize the mission of UWC ISAC Japan by coaching and empowering each other to develop practices and cohesive programs to achieve purposeful growth in our respective teams by 2020. We have our membership. This is who is in our group. This is part of what binds us together, is acknowledgement that we're part of this group. There are other people that are not part of this group, and that was an intentional sort of design thing. So as you recall, we all represent different areas of the school: the academic, the pastoral and residential program, and the experiential program. We have the norms. Remember, same as you guys, we went through and said what we'd like to see more of. and we have a norm correction. So when these things don't happen, we can actually have a chat and say, you know what, we're deviating here. Give me some snacks. Now let's get to strategy. So what we did is we actually sat down as a group, and when this group was started, we didn't know what it is this group was about. We had a general idea that we would be looking at an overall sort of health of the programs, but we didn't actually know what needs. We had a bit of an idea of the needs that the school has, but we didn't want to fabricate and make things up. So we went out and talked to our people, and we found out the things that they were interested in. And we came back to the table and we decided to arrange these things that we discovered and try and find the right words for them together. And this is what we came up with. And we put them in the strategies in a how might we sort of format. So we have how might we organize a school meeting schedule for the year to ensure positive movement and change. So that speaks to how we might organize ourselves to spend time on the things that are important. We found that sometimes school meetings we wouldn't know why they're happening. Sometimes they wouldn't actually progress. You know, we didn't have sometimes they were just general knowledge. It was a bit unclear. They were still very good meetings, but I don't know whether they got the momentum that they were looking for. And so we thought that's a point that we can have a look at. And if we can do that well, that can help the entire school, the entire faculty and staff. So we looked at number 2, how might we support in the recruitment of new faculty and a handover process of leaving faculty. So this speaks about pretty clearly about attracting the right sort of people to this organization and then keeping them, and then having a process when they leave that we can learn from them. If they leave on good terms, we can learn about the things that they really cherished and the reasons why they're leaving. And if they leave with some degree of dissatisfaction, that can give us information too about why this happened. So we thought a bit of an overview of recruitment would help be something that if we can recruit the right kind of people that are bound by the same sorts of things, yet leaving space for people who are different, and have different perspective. That we can help bring shape to that. The third one was we created this new organizational model that goes through with these different groups that we've created, but we have no idea if it's going to work or not. So rather than just blindly going with it, we thought, let's work out a way. How might we monitor and evaluate this organizational model? So that makes sense. And number 4 is how might we ensure all groups are aligned with the mission statement and leadership practice. So this puts at the heart of obviously what we're trying to do here is be mission focused and develop leadership. So this allows us to design ways, to design tactics to specifically focus on these things. And then number 5 down here, how might we revisit and enhance and roll out a supported strategic plan? So once we do work out what we're going to do, how might we make that known to people? How might we bring people in? How might we give them a voice and agency in this thing that we're designing? And this is what we came up with. Okay, so we actually called these things strategies. They are motivated by needs in the community. That we look at what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and it leaves it open for to bring people into this conversation, rather than be a team that's sort of making all the decisions with power over people, and rather the desire to bring people into this process and still move forward, which is one of the tricky things to do, because you can talk about things forever, but taking action requires the skill of facilitation. So that's what we came up with our strategies. So the idea is that you sit down with your group and you talk and you interview for empathy and you find out what sort of needs they have, what's going on in the scene, and you develop some how might we questions. Now these questions need to be broad enough to cover all of the different dimensions of what it is that you're seeking to change. But you shouldn't have too many, because unless your group is quite large and you're multifaceted, it's going to be quite difficult to get everything done. So you do have to start somewhere. So let's move on to tactics. So tactics are different from strategy. Strategy is about identifying needs, identifying problems, framing them up in a way that promotes ideas, like a how might we question. But tactics are different. Tactics are very specific to what we should do, what we're going to do. Now, I've been in lots and lots of meetings of things trying to solve problems or attend to problems. And what I can tell you is people will jump over strategy and go straight to tactics over and over again. That's the most natural thing that people do to short circuit an organization. So here's an example. Say you're organizing the sustainability club and you sit down and go, okay, what do we need to do? And someone will go, you know what, we could plant a garden, right? And you go, oh, great. Yeah, that's one thing that we could do. And then someone else says, oh, you know what, we should get, why doesn't this place have a wind turbine? We need a wind turbine. And someone else goes, oh, you know, I saw on television that people are reducing plastics. So let's get rid of the plastics in the cafeteria. Okay. Now, I would say all of those things are tactics, not strategies. So if we go back and we say, hey, why do you want to get rid of those plastics? Okay. And they might say, well, actually, I watched this documentary and there is a need to reduce plastics because it's not good for the environment. And here's the data. And then we go back and say, okay, how might we reduce plastics on campus? Okay. One idea is to look to the cafeteria. Another idea, another tactic could be to look into houses. Another tactic could be to train people about what they can and can't, shouldn't buy from Amazon. Another thing is to look at what sort of cleaning equipment we have. All of those things are tactics. But if you jump straight to we need to reduce plastic in the cafeteria, which is good and valid, you might miss out on another dimension. You might miss out on other tactics that may work as well. Right. Now we have the strategies here. Now, what I've got here, and this is how we did it in our group, tactics. What tactics do we need to work on this change? So we sat at the table and we had number one, how might we organize school meeting schedule for the year to ensure positive movement and change? So we went through and we came up with a bunch of ideas, and then we decided to have 3 different ways to do this, 3 different ways to approach this. So we wanted to create a method for regular information collection from group leaders, feedback mechanism. That makes sense. We wanted to identify the time needs of each group and review the schedule. So this speaks to how might we make sure everyone's meeting, in the correct way. And the other idea was about showing the change and creating a visual and post it up in the office detailing when we're meeting and what we're up to, with the idea that this might help people understand that change is happening and that there's positive changes all over the school for the effort that people put in. Then we allocated people to it. So we put up our hands. I said, I'm happy to do that. I have a real interest in this area and I want to be the champion of this. So, and Laura did as well. So we said, we're going to take care of this and we're going to bring something back to the group. So this group isn't something that you come and you work it out all together. We don't have enough time for that. So people go, do a bit of work, do a bit of research, and we have faith that when it comes back to the table, that it's been well researched and we can challenge that. But also we can make decisions together, but someone needs to do something. So we accept responsibility here. So in terms of recruitment, Jennifer and Yaling looked at these things. These were the ideas. There's quite a few. Reviewing policy, creating a clear supported process for exit faculty, define our current employer needs, so on and so forth. How might we monitor and evaluate this model? Myself and Pierre. I know a bit about this model, so I'm happy to do it. And Pierre oversees the whole thing as deputy head of school. So we thought we'd work on that together so we both are aware of what's going on. So developing a rollout, that's been happening. Creating a method for data collection of organizing statement, we have that. We shared that. Creating a monitoring evaluation tool to track, how effective this whole thing is. We haven't yet done that. That takes a little bit more time, I think. Creating a tool for sharing the routine quarterly semester growth. That's something that's been destabilized because of the COVID response, but basically we wanted to get up each quarter and say, this is the progress. This is what's happening on an institutional level. And that's something we will do. So to look at group alignment with the mission statement and leadership practice, defining what that is, asking all groups to create an evaluation tool, to celebrate, to have some fun here. When people reach a skill or they level up, let's have a party with that. And let me just correct that. I can't have things in the wrong spot. Create a simple tool that allows advocacy when decisions are made on how to take action. And then we have a party. There's another party, more fun in there. So what you'll see is these are very specific actions over here. These are our tactics. They're different from the broad strategies. The tactics are here. Someone has to accept responsibility, and that speaks to you organizing what are the roles and responsibilities of that you've created in your group. Now, what I would say about that is if you have made those roles and responsibilities and they don't quite match up to what you've developed here, you might want to revisit them and say, actually, I thought one of the roles and responsibilities was going to be this, but when people got together and discussed it, we actually need someone else to do something different. Okay? Now, if you're in a group, the leaders over here should be many different people. It is going to be a problem if you ask people and bring them in and no one volunteers to do this. And you might be tempted to put your name down here. All right, I'll do it then. All right, if you want a job done yourself, you'll do it. You'll do it yourself. You want a job done right, you'll do it yourself. I think that's what it is. Okay, you'll put that down. That's a danger, especially for people that know they can maybe do these jobs. But this often is what happens is if you have a leadership model where there is a leader at the top. So I would take that as an indication that maybe something is not right if no one's putting their hand up. And you might need to roll back and ask the question, hey, why? I'm noticing this. I'm concerned about it, but I'm non-judgmental about it. So what can we do? Did we mess up somewhere? Is this not quite in line with what did we not work out why we're bound together correctly? Are people here for the group for different reasons? It's never going to be neat and tidy, but that's an indicator. If your name is showing up as the only person who's wanting to do any of this, you're not going to be able to build the capacity. You're not going to be able to build a team. Not without taking an authoritarian point of view. And that's not what community organizing is about. So that's a bit of an overview of tactics. I hope that's been useful to you. So I hope you appreciate that understanding the difference between strategy and tactics is absolutely paramount. And the good news is that if you're not sure between the two, the quickest way to get to understand the needs is to just ask that great question, why? And if someone's really passionate about them, say, why is that important to you? And if they cite, I read this in an article, just probe a little bit deeper and say, I understand that it's important that you read about it, it's cognitively important, but why is it actually important to you? What would you like to see happen that's not happening already? And you might find underneath all of these things and all of these ideas that people have, there may be a very, very human reason why it is important to someone. So I would say once you find out what that is, and if you build that skill of understanding why it's important, you will be better able to develop strategy and you'll be more open to making good tactics. Because once you can design tactics from that place that is solid, you'll find that many more tactics can come. Now, another and my last point on tactics is, a while ago I told you the story how I was talking to a Stanford innovation teacher, and I explained the situation where people tend to settle for ideas rather than looking for new ideas. And she was explaining that a practice that she gets her students to do, which I now get you guys to do, is when you do identify a strategy, I don't want you to come up with one tactic or two tactics. I want you to really challenge yourself to come up with 5, 10, 20. set that with your group and then come back to the table and see what you've got and see what links. I forgot one thing. I'm going to put it in here. This is the last thing. The tactics that you choose can be things that you enjoy doing. You don't have to do a tactic. You can bring your own flavor of life and love and personality to each tactic you do. So often I'll put down a tactic on the table and I'll ask myself, what's the most fun way that I can do this tactic, right? So to go back to the example of plastics in the cafeteria, say if we want to reduce the plastics, and I say, okay, well, I need to talk to Dario about this. So what's the best way to do it? Okay, I'm going to dress up as a plastic fork, and I'm going to ask for a meeting as a plastic fork, and I'm going to talk to him. And that is a little bit crazy. I get it, but it would be certainly memorable. And certainly Dario would laugh at this, and maybe that might make him more open to this idea that we need to reduce these single-use plastics. So the idea is that bring your personality to your tactics also brings you into the world. It's not just you doing what someone else has come up with in the past. It's you bringing your own personality and flavor to it. Now, if you don't want to dress up like a fork, I get it. Not everyone wants to dress up like a fork. What I'm saying is be yourself in this. Trust that you have something to say and bring your personality to the positive change that you make in this world, okay? Right, here we go, homework time. Now, I know many of you have already started on your leadership portfolio to put in all the information that we have, that I've asked for you in this unit on community organizing. And this is one step further. It's very important that this information makes it to your portfolio, as that's what I'm going to be looking at next week in order to determine whether you've met the coursework requirements. So this page might help you. So what I would like you to do is definitely have on your leadership portfolio the organizing statement, the membership, including possible people that you might recruit, and possible staff or faculty or other people that might be able to help you, that you might try and recruit for your group. The norms that you brainstormed and a norm correction. As part of this unit, strategies and tactics, I want you to sit with your buddy and sort of brainstorm some how might we's, interview each other to identify different needs, and work hard on that. If it doesn't occur to you straight away, through engaging in a conversation, other dimensions will be teased out, and present your strategies as a how might we type question, quite open. Then when you've done that, go through to your tactics, put your strategies in this column, and write down exactly what are the measurable, what are the things that you're going to do in order to meet your strategic goal, to get the change that you want, and what sort of people in that group might be able to do that job. Now, all of that information is going to take a little while to do. It's important work, and more importantly, it helps you practice what it means to be an organizer. Many people just join a group and expect that'll be it. Someone else will drive this thing, and that's not how this works. Hopefully, this process will get you something, and I think it's important. So if you could put that on, come to the check-in session and clarify anything that you need. And thank you for paying attention to this important task of organizing others and working with others to create positive change. See you next time.